Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Brightworks, another match of Beyond All Reason. Today, we're taking a look at Twin Parks Redo, which is a map that I haven't played on in a good long while. Haven't seen a game on this one in a good long while, but I especially haven't played on it in a good long while. It's certainly been a moment. I remember this map, and I remember having a lot of fun on it, but I've definitely need to refresh. So this is a good opportunity for me, as well as maybe some of you out there, to get a look at one of these maps that we don't see played all too often. So, spawning today on the front lines of the blue team goes by the name of Chelios. 24 true skill, not quite a silver tail of a chevron yet, but going to be showing us what they've got on the bottom lane. This map's pretty interesting. We'll get into that right after we meet our red team leader, who goes by the name of Pyrotech. Going to be going for that second metal extractor here as we catch him in the 42nd second of the game. Should be all fairly oh, actually a little bit substandard. We're going for an LLT here. Interesting. This is actually a really greedy build. Okay, so Pyrotech is just moving forward, marching forward to claim these metal extractors rather than going for a lab. That's interesting. Definitely going to put you behind as far as unit production goes, but maybe that extra metal you get from having the metal extractors up and running a whole lot longer will be well worth it. Usually what we see is somebody go for a lab right here, go for a constructor, and then send the constructor over in this direction to claim these three, and then another constructor or the commander to catch these two after you've got the lab and the energy and all that sort of stuff set up. Will it pay off for Pyrotech? I guess we'll see as we get into this match right here. So what are some of the interesting things about this match? Well, one of the things is that this map is mirrored, right? So the north and southern side are going to be identical. So I'll just kind of explain the dynamic on the southern side, and it transposes itself up to the northern side as well. So essentially you're in a 2 versus 1 down here. You can see that you've got Phil as well as Chelios on the southern side, but Phil has sort of this weird geometry to deal with where you have to either go up this hill and then down into this spot, or around this hill and over to here. And then you have Slim Daddy, who's going to be fighting through either the middle of the map right here. Yeah, actually probably right through the middle of the map right there. And then you have Let's Roll, who hasn't even made it out of the pond yet, is going to be trying to fight kind of up and into this area here. Essentially what I'm trying to say is it gets really complicated which lanes are whose and where they should be fighting. So if you're not paying really super close attention to exactly where the lines are evolving and where actually everybody is lining up to fight at, it can be really easy to suddenly have more than one player lining up against you, and it can be very easy to lose quite a lot of units, economy, or your entire base just from a couple of runaway tanks or some grunts or thugs or anything really that managed to break your line. Already some ticks across the map right here from Sib. They're going to find at the very least the purple base from Hel Satano, who is not having an LLT in main base right here. We do have a couple of constructors out, so that's quite nice. Interesting build. We're going to go for the advanced solar into the metal storage here. Interesting. One of the ticks is pulled away to try and kill that wind turbine here. Yeah, commander going to repair it. Okay, there we go. We do have some micro coming out right here from Sib. Going to try and control these units and keep them up to spec right here. Fubuki Waifu. In a little bit of trouble. At the very least, an excellent scout rate. Pardon me, right here. Not sure if these tan ticks are going to be able to do much more damage. Maybe. At the very least, the Green Commander is pinging to let his allies know that they need to do something about this. We do have a blitz that was just produced out of this laboratory, but it was not pulled back. Yeah, it's a bummer. Luckily, those ticks weren't spread out right here. Let me go ahead and clear those markers. Markers not usually an issue, but the ticks are so small that they actually do hide behind them. Yeah, we have a defensive blitz out now, so there's not really a whole lot more damage that should be done over here. Maybe they can find Rokan Court, who is the air player right now. That might also be a pain. If you find the air player, obviously they're not going to have anything except their commander to defend, and especially if you find their commander flying across the map in a transport, oftentimes very easy to harass them with just some very early scout units. There's almost always nothing that they can do about it. Construction turret is coming up right here for the Seafoam Green Commander, though. And we do have, sorry, not construction turrets. We do have the commander also building a bunch of wind turbines over here. There are the ticks. Ready to blast down those wind turbines. Okay, well, way too close to the explosion and they do go down. A bit of a bummer right there. Still not bad. So Pyrotech, I mean, it's an interesting build order. We now have a lot of economy coming up. We have constructor after constructor building anti-air, building wind turbines over here. We have some LOTs coming up, setting essentially themselves up for a really late game kind of scenario by going so heavily on the economy early on. Actually asked for a transport early on as well, so I wonder if we're going to see some transport shenanigans. Down on the southern side, Time Container is trying to hold his own against some medium tanks and some light tanks over here. Easy to overstep with your commander, especially when you're low on power and suddenly find yourself in a situation where you cannot use your D-gun, you don't have enough units, and you just have no other options but to thermonuclearly detonate on top of your opposing forces. Yeah, medium tank gonna be blasted away from a long distance. Oh, LLT, LLT, oh no, Phil, my man Phil. My goodness. Getting that LLT up to a double gold star chevron right there. Gold star rank, I mean. That hurts. That hurts quite a lot. That LLT is now going to be quite dangerous on the front lines. It doesn't get a whole lot more range. In fact, I don't think it gets any range, but it does get quite a bit more DPS as it starts to level up. And obviously, it gets more and more DPS as it levels up. Its rate of leveling up increases as it levels up because it does more damage, which means it gains more experience, which means it levels up quicker, which means it gets more damage and gets more experience. You get the idea. Little pawn run by over here. Sib is in position to blast all these to pieces, and I think those takes will be dealt with nicely over here. That man-portable LLT, packing quite a punch. Grunts showing their strength against the pawns here. You can essentially just fight command these. If you take the grunts and you just fight command them into the pawns, and the pawns aren't microed, the pawns will disappear and the grunts will remain. One of those Cortex tricks that makes them extremely, extremely useful. Medium tanks against blitzes. It's that weird matchup of the blitz having more maneuverability but less HP. Means that essentially the effectiveness comes down to micro, and right here the micro was not on par as they flew directly into the sun of those bad yogurt LLTs right here. Nicely done. Nice defensive setup right there. Yeah, I would say the red team definitely holding a pressing advantage on the southern side here. Time Container desperately trying to set up these metal extractors. I think that's a great idea. Going to help that unit production quite a lot. We also have the Maroon Commander contributing a whole lot of forces here. Chelios desperately needs to get his forces up on the front. We have a couple of riot tanks over here. I think one in the choke point might be well worth it, but maybe two is necessary here. Nice catch by these medium tanks. Yeah, they find those aggravators stepping too far forward right there from the yellow commander. Always good to see. Transport's been handed over to Pyrotech, who is going to go up to a T1 heavy army. Agitators, thugs, all those more expensive, slower, better units. Build power will be dropped on the front lines here. Interesting. Okay. We're carrying a construction turret to the front, and I don't mind it. I mean, obviously that construction turret is going to be useful for repairing anything that gets damaged and manages to micro its way backwards, but also setting up any static defenses on the front line here. There we go. Yeah, you can see repairing up that thug, certainly useful. Any other units that are scuffed up a little bit in the line of duty, they can certainly be patched back up again. Resbot, Resbot, Resbot. Ooh, Resbot goes down to the LLT right there. Just a miscue of the Resbot, unfortunately. Essentially a mirrored fight on the northern side. Yeah, we have all these metal extractors being denied right here by the green commander as well as the purple commander, setting up little wall lines over here, but there's no reason you shouldn't continue pushing, especially with the commander. You can de-gun down a lot of these LLTs as long as you make sure not to get yourself surrounded by the enemy's units. Usually aggression pays off in the end because you get all the metal from your enemy's units and structures and whatnot that you can reclaim. Aggravators continuing to aggravate. Love to see it. Yeah, you know what? I really like the construction turrets on the front line. I think that's really quite nice. It lends so much sustainability to this army. They really can't just pop into combat, pop back out, and anybody that survives is going to be healed right on back up to full health right here. Construction turrets, obviously, with quite a lot of build power relative to, say, for instance, Resbots or something like that. Some other option for doing the same effect. Expensive, to say the very least, but also automatic. You don't have to worry about setting up queues or commands or anything like that. Very low APM. Very good for folks like me who are not necessarily the fastest gamers in the Wild West, but know enough about the strategic element to keep your units in check. Also great for reclaim. It's well worth noting. One of the things that they cannot do over the Resbot is reclaim. Or resurrect, rather. But they're more than happy to reclaim out into the distance. Their furthest reaches. Yeah, I mean, genuinely lending so much durability to this army right here. That's interesting. That's really, really interesting. I quite like it. I think that's really, really nice. Well worth noting that Slim Daddy has set up a beautiful defense over here. We do have the beamer turret as well as a whole bunch of Janices. Basically a medium tank army. Or a vehicle army, I should say. So difficult to keep an effective fight against this. You can see Pyrotech struggling now, 2 versus 1 right here. Modak has just fortified this hillside right here, but it doesn't even matter. Pyrotech is without an ally. Yeah, we do have T2 coming up right here in the back line, but essentially for the time being, Pyrotech essentially has nothing on the front lines anymore because it's all been obliterated by 2 commanders worth of economy leaning on him. So you can see this is supplemented. Oh, nice bombing run, by the way, in the back line over here. Was too busy paying attention over on the other side of the map that I didn't notice these bombers came across the map and managed to blow up a lot of the wind turbines over here for the Lavender Commander. So the question is, will the T2 transition be quick enough and powerful enough that Pyrotech doesn't lose the entire main facility in order to get that up and running. We do have the T2 constructor that was building on the T2 metal extractors, which is always great. Goes for a sabo turret here, and that's actually a really smart decision. You know that this T1 army is going to be pushing forward, and that's one of the best defenses against the T1 units is those sabo turrets. Bombers out now, and they're going to drop their payload over here on this side of the map. Not sure exactly if that's the right idea. Time container is pretty low, though. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Bombers actually sniping the commander over here on this side. All right, I'll take it. That means his medium tank can absolutely pull the trigger right here, and indeed they do. Marching forward, and those medium tanks blast apart everything that existed over on this side, meaning there's absolutely no reason for Chelios not to go push for the win right here as that entire area collapses. Beast Eater is in position right here, that maroon commander, but at least for the time being, that commander is way out of spec in order to take down all these medium tanks that are ravaging the fronts right here. Really, really nicely done. All right, Pyrotech Scorpion turret is up. It'll be, oh, a little bit of friendly fire right there as the grunt evaporates into a thin gray and red mist from the friendly collision right there of that Scorpion turret to friendly unit. Medium landmines over here. I think these are medium. Yeah, medium landmines being set up over here, or already set up over here. Yeah, actually quite nice. Going to deny quite a lot of this push right here from these medium tanks. Beautiful. Really beautiful. Yeah, you know what? Lovely, lovely stuff right here. You have no idea, obviously, as the green player, where exactly those landmines are and how dense they are as you push forward into that choke point over here. Excellent usage of the landmines. Really, really discouraging that commander from pushing in there until at the very least we get a Juno missile or something like that in order to effectively deal with all that. Oh, Chelios commander being pulled away. There we go. Yeah, gonna reclaim that commander wreckage, and I think it's absolutely the right idea here. Whole bunch of aggravators going down, medium tanks going down. T2 lab starts up in desperation. This is definitely a Hail Mary. If we can get the T2 lab, and it's a big if, but if we can get the T2 lab up, maybe the T2 units will be enough to exchange efficiently here. If not, though, it will be a nightmare. There you go. You can see the Scorpion turret doing some real work, blasting away a bunch of these Rocketeers, essentially denying them from pushing forward here. T2 lab is up and running as well, so Pyrotech gambled on the T2 lab, the T2 transition, but eventually it was well worth it. It's about time for Daedalus to get into the fight, though. We need to secure this area of the map. Whoops, sorry. This area of the map. We're going to sacrifice the commander even as a desperate influx of metal here to pump out a whole bunch more units. I don't mind it one bit. I think it's probably well worth it. Setting up some sort of an economy. Essentially a big stalemate up on the northern side, but the southern side is looking quite a bit more active. Yeah, we do more units rolling through over here. Still, those landmines are in place, and still, if we collide with them, they could have a devastating effect on the tanks. Beautiful. So much value, the landmine. Extremely, extremely efficient. For the cost of 16 metal, wiping out nearly, I mean, more than half the health right here of these medium tanks. Beautifully, beautifully done. All right, Fiends are pulled. We absolutely should send these up the hill and into the side of the green commander over here. We already have Sheldon up and running for Pyrotech, though, so that T2 transition is already completed. Do we have T2? Oh, we don't have T2 in the backline right here. Oh, no. Have we not gone for T2 tech? We do have T2 from Slim Daddy, but we definitely need to propagate T2 as quickly as possible. Yeah, it's a lot of medium tanks, but they can't really compete very much with, well, whatever else you're going to build in the T2 era. We've got a lot of health, a lot of sustain, but they are relatively slow and decent enough at kiting. Here come the Fiends. I actually don't even mind the Fiends as a assault unit here against these tanks because, of course, you can self-destruct them and do a crazy amount of damage against the medium tanks. I think you would actually do more damage self-destructing them into the medium tanks here than just pushing forward into them. Either way, a nice catch on the pink commander right there. Let's Roll's commander is spotted, though. Uh-oh. Yeah, Cyan commander a little too far forward here, at least for my taste. Yeah, Fiend is going to do a whole lot of damage. Nice Deegan right there. Cleaves apart the Fiend as well as some of those grunts over here. More and more Fiends being pulled to try and deal with that commander. 36% HP after all that. Not bad. But here we go. Single Arbiter has been produced, but it's perfect for blasting down all these bases over here. You can see it targeting down all the valuable infrastructure, construction turrets, construction workers here, all that sort of stuff. Sumo waddling forward here as well to offer a little bit of vision. Try and help some of these units push forward a little more effectively here. There we go. Beautifully, beautifully done. Very light T1 investment ends up being, or sorry, very light T2 investment, but using the right tool at the right time, using it for the right job, and eventually, the front line is broken. Now, Slim Daddy will have T2 up and running here, but we need to get these T2 metal extractors up first and foremost. They're the lifeblood of the T2 army, those T2 metal extractors. Absolutely critical in every sense of the word that we get those up and running as quickly as possible, because otherwise it will be impossible to field an army as efficient as the one that's already up on the front right here for Pyrotech. We lose that transport. I would have loved to see more constructors move to the front line. Really a novel, well, not a novel strategy, but a cool strategy to see. We don't see it all too often, so I'm always happy to see people using those little tricks and tips that they can figure out in the match. Yeah, Slim Daddy ready to degen those fiends, but does miss them. Just barely. There we go. Front line is broken. Beautifully, beautifully done. Sneaky Pete's so difficult to find. Essentially, the only way to find them is to run into them. Eventually, the fiends will do. But definitely tricky. Beast Eater has started producing these heavy tanks, but I'd actually like to see a couple of Zars. Zars would be super powerful against this big ball of medium tanks. Their AoE damage is unparalleled, especially for the T2 era. I think there's enough heavy tanks here that we could efficiently take down all the medium tanks as well. But of course, just hard to beat the cathartic response of a Zar firing into a big cluster of units. Yeah, you can see we're trading the medium tanks effectively, ineffectively against those T1 or against those T2 tanks. Just no way that they're going to push in here. Fiends, by the way, have just been sent around the map to do a whole bunch of damage. And a whole bunch of damage they have done indeed. Pyrotech just finding some openings and then pushing through those to try and do as much damage as possible. Love to see it. Down goes the base over here. The build power pops. That T2 lab will be no more. Here come the bombers. Yeah, that's not going to save you. In go the fiends. Wind turbines start to fall as well. Sheldon pushing in whenever they can. Let's Roll's commander is uncloaked by the Arbiter over there. That's a nice catch by Let's Roll. That Arbiter definitely contributes a lot of firepower here. But the Fiends have already burned down the base of the Lime Green Commander, who was left in that but a single constructor and a single build tower. A single metal extractor, I suppose, as well. Very nicely done right there. A message of compliance, or complacency, really. The blue team they thought that they had won because they had gained a little bit of a positional advantage, but in doing so, they failed to transition into T2 appropriately. And because the T2 propagation was so slow on their side, it ended up meaning that there was actually nothing they could do once full-blown T2 came out in swing right here. Nuke has started up right here. I guess Pyrotech not interested in keeping this game going any longer. Still a big T1 battle on the northern side, by the way, which is quite funny. We're seeing a quite modest T2 battle across the map, and then we still have a T1 battle of Rocketeers headed on the southern side. Here come the medium tanks. Chelios essentially forced into it all in by that push on the other side of the map. But just goes to show how much more efficient those heavy tanks are against the medium ones. Looks like the wreckage of like 1, 2, 3, or 4 heavy tanks for 20, 40 medium, or sorry, 4 or 5 heavy tanks for 20 or 40 medium tanks. Yeah, the medium tanks are quite efficient. Pyrotech now pushing into the bases over here. Fiends jumping on top of a whole bunch of hounds over here as well, which is always quite nice. Always a good thing when you can manage to jump on top of your enemy's artillery units with your assault units. It's right where you want to keep them. There go the Fiends burning away at the base. Down goes the T2 lab right there. That's an excellent pickoff. Advanced Solars are falling too. Really, really nicely done right here by the Red Commander. Pushing through the middle of the map, keeping the aggression high, remembering to attack with whatever is available, using the Resbots here to suck up a whole bunch of that metal as well and pump it back into the economy. Using the death of the enemy to, yeah, actually fund the war effort. Very nicely done. Medium tank ball, now completely crumbled right here. Stunned that we didn't go for T2 a whole lot sooner right here for the blue commander. We do have another construction turret coming up. Yeah, that construction turret locked onto that base. This is, just goes to show exactly how important that aggression is, right? If you aren't aggressive on the front and you end up losing too many of those units, eventually it's just going to be an overwhelming metal spiral. But also the fact that we went very greedy for the T2 early on in this, instead of the Orange Commander producing units, you saw that it was very close to Pyrotech losing the entire facility as the blue team almost pushed in there. But just in the nick of time, T2 did come up and save the day. When that Scorpion turret was up, I would have liked to see some run-bys around the rest of the map. Effectively, if you know that you can't get any value with your T1 units in your lane, you might as well send them to some other lane. That or reclaim them. Somebody asked me about that in a comment. Asked what I meant by reclaiming T1 units, how that works. And I mean it at face value. You quite literally use your own Resbots, your own construction turrets, whatever build power you have to eat your own units. You just hit the E button, when you're selecting a constructor. There we go. Hit the E button to recycle, and you recycle your own units, and you get the full value of your unit back as opposed to what you would get if they were a wreckage on the battlefield, which is just a fractional amount of that. Means that you can very quickly turn an extremely expensive army, especially a T1 expensive army, into either a T2 army that's way more efficient for the same metal cost, or a whole bunch more eco so that you can produce a whole bunch more units. Tends to work out pretty good. Shuriken over here to paralyze the tin can, meaning that those medium tanks will eventually blast that T2 bot down. It's going to take a minute, but eventually they'll blast it down. You can see the game plan has been secured over here, though. Pyrotech, continuing to tech up the ladder right now, transitioning into airplay here, maybe thinking about going into some bombing after the T2 has done its job of crippling all of the defenses of the blue team. Right now the blue team is caught in a dangerous position where they have essentially two options. They can either go for a whole lot more aggression and hope to break through on some other side, essentially a counterattack, or they can try and go into a whole bunch of greed to try and regain all the metal that they lost. But already the eco advantage is about 400 or so for the red team, meaning that it's going to be extremely difficult to break back into this game right here for the blue team. They need to take a tremendous trade. Losing your production facility is definitely going to make that even more difficult. T2 lab goes down as well as all the build power. Wind turbines going to follow shortly after here. At the very least, we do have those heavy tanks coming out for the blue commander. But man, imagine if all that metal that was in T1 medium tanks had gone into T2 and T2 heavy tanks instead. I think it would have been a much more compelling army here. Bombers even trying to blast down some of those tanks. Not the end of the world, but typically not the best base defense, the bomber. Famously known for their ability to friendly fire. A couple of sharpshooters on the front here. That's actually quite nice. Gonna start blasting away at whatever they can. Peeling off layer after layer of that commander. Certainly quite useful. Constructor goes down here as well, means that agitator won't complete. There's already two agitators that are firing away over here, which is quite annoying for these T2 units to deal with, but it's not game breaking. It's not going to pressure them all the way back. Excellent little coordination right there from the red commander, instructing his teammate to send the whole force all the way forward right here. We should also take these constructors that we use for reclaiming and capture all these metal extractors. Easy to forget to do that because it does seem like a bit of an afterthought, but you really will start to produce a crazy amount of metal as you start to reclaim capture rather your enemy's metal deposits. Pyrotech going for another fusion reactor here. Not content with the power that he has. Nuke is charged. Where is it headed? Looks like it's going to go directly into the blue base right here. Take a look at that. Beautiful. Beautiful. The nuclear missile is up in the air and headed directly towards the blue base. It's a sign of a player who says, I'm done playing with you. I think it's about time that you step out of my game. Here comes the nuke sailing across the skies. Boom goes the base, wiping out everything, including the T2 lab right there. The entire blue base is wiped off the face of the map. The blue team calls a resign vote with that resounding thermonuclear boom, and I wouldn't be surprised if at this point they decide to call it as the red team overwhelms them with more aggression, more firepower, and just overall more commitment out on the map, eventually leading to their total victory. Beautifully played right there by the red team. Love to watch Pyrotech play. Definitely a player who knows what they're doing and showed us exactly how risky you can play it, but still manage to claw yourself back with that powerful T2 transition. Absolutely lovely. Sure hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next game of Beyond All Reason. Peace out, everybody.